once again, he's called me 9 times the last 2 weeks and he doesn't find anything. So is Latinos too.
We got stopped because we had a broken windshield, and all of a sudden, I mean, you know, we had dogs running all over here trying to look at my car. I mean, I had nothing to hide, so I didn't, you know, the officer, I really don't think this was justified.
Well, I want to thank the Fairfax County Police Department for working with us on these scenarios. They did an excellent job. But those scenarios probably touch home to a lot of people, law enforcement as well as community. Let's go back to the first scenario. First, I want to ask those of you that's in the room that are not law enforcement, what did you observe in the video, and did you also have the right to stop them, approach the young men the way that they did? Are there any non-officers in the room? Yes. Okay.
I don't think they had a reason to stop.
Okay. And you base that on what?
They didn't do anything.
Okay.
If they got out of the car and were running towards the store, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do anything bad when they get in it.
Okay. Now I see there's some people in NAACP here. Could one of you respond to that same question?
Could you repeat the question?
But the question is, in that first video, where the 4 young men jumped from the out of the car, went to the store, the officer called for backup, and they pretty much detained the individual for a certain period of time. The question is, as a non-police officer, a non-law enforcement officer, those people did also have the right to do that? What did they see?
I believe there was suspicion. There was suspicion because they were running into the store.
Okay.
Usually, when someone is robbing or doing something wrong, they're going to do it quick. They're going to run in and run out. Mm-hmm. So I think there was a reasonable suspicion, but it was the way that the police handled it after they approached the gentleman and they could have found out whether they were stealing right off the bat or whether they had bought the merchandise and just let them go. So I think there was some harassment in there after the fact.
Okay. That's right. Gentleman over here. Yes.
Yes. I think it was a stereotype, and it was for young black men. Anytime you see 1 or 2 or more blacks, it raises suspicious to the average law enforcement officer, especially at a convenience store like that.
Okay. Now, officers, you heard those responses. Now I want to turn to you. Based on your training, did the officer do the right thing in that particular scene? Any law enforcement officer?
Some of the ones hitting on is the tags came back stolen. That's part of the information officer made his decision on.
Okay. What else?
I think from the beginning, suspicious activity. 4 guys get out of the car, run into the store, cars kept running, which, a lot of times these convenience stores throughout the law enforcement, they're known to stop and robs. People get in, rob them. It was compounded by the fact It was compounded by the fact that the officer called in suspicious activity, seeing that 4 individuals went into the store that quick, kept the car running. But what compounded the problem was when he ran the tags, he ran the wrong tags. I'm imagining when they come back on the film from dispatch and said 10:30, we don't use a 10 code, we just use plain English, that the 10:30 meant the tag was stolen. Yeah. So from that point on, all he is looking at, he's calling for backup, which, is standard procedure. But everything was compounded by the fact that he ran the wrong tag. And I think at that point on, there's, when you look at it, when they come out and check them out, that fact needs to be explained. In this community, we have convenience stores, they're #1 targets for robbery. I think that would be explained as well. So the communication aspect is very important on why they did what they did. And in that video, it really wasn't, they didn't go into any kind of explanation.
Okay. I'd like to ask for another officer to respond.
I think a lot of it could have been.
Where?
This officer.
Okay, there. Okay.
A lot of it could have been alleviated if the officer had been in a better position to see what was going on inside the store. He was never in a position to see the store.
Okay.
Were they shopping? Were they all standing at the counter? If they were shopping and then they walked out carrying items that they bought, the situation would have been a whole lot different.
So ask this broad question. All the officers, do you think that based on what the officer has at hand, what he observed, did what he was trained to do? If you think that he did, raise your hand. Okay. All right. Here again, you heard from some community members, and you heard and you saw the hands of law enforcement officers. Raise questions, because we'll get into later. And some of you already mentioned, particularly Pastor Wright, reasonable suspicion. We can talk about legal basis. What that means when it comes to reasonable suspicion and probable cause. And we talk about 2 types of acts: engagement and then the disengagement. All right. And the disengagement, someone mentioned, a couple, I think the chief mentioned it earlier, is how the officer left that particular situation. Because these type of things contribute to the perception of racial profiling and wrongdoing by law enforcement officers from the community. What a lot of times communities don't know is that some of the history or other information the law enforcement officer may have learned or was told during his briefing before he went out or she went out to do the job. In regards to the history of convenience stores attacked in that particular neighborhood or area, and the possible descriptions and so on. Right? So, from the community side, they see it from their perspective of how those young men was treated. And those young men is going to take it back to their neighborhoods and can also say, yes, we was profiled. Our tags was run, and they had the wrong tags, but yet we was treated away without any explanation. And that's the perception that they would have about law enforcement. In the next scene, let's go to another scene. All All right? And in that